know if in the cities they put rods on the fire hydrant.
We have rods on a bunch of them, but then someone cut a bunch of the rods off. Like on Fifth Street, all the rods are like this long. That's what John was saying yesterday.
Or let them fall into, yes.
They didn't like him or something, I don't know.
Fishing pole.
Ah, 6:59, that's close enough.
That'll also be a short meeting, so. Well, I don't know, I mean, I guess I can check with organizers if I can get hold of them. But last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, but last couple of years, I know last year we didn't do it. It was gonna be like Boy Scouts or something, I suppose they never showed up, so.
Well, I believe we're close enough to do the pledge and move on to the regular meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we call the February 12th, 2019 City Council meeting to order. All councilors present with the exception of Mr. Henke. Also Attorney Rigg and Administrator Walsing. Citizen comments. Do you have anyone who wishes to make a comment on anything that isn't already on the agenda? Do we have any corrections or additions to the agenda?
No, the only thing is under approval of this MnDOT cooperative agreement, there's a resolution 2019-06 that has to be adopted. We have on there approval of the agreement,
And here we have resolution.
so that was just passed out. The proposed landscape, it would be under new business C, proposed landscape partnership cooperative.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, there's a resolution that has to
And
be approved to authorize signers, so that's 2019-06, if you want to put that under new business C, just right under that item.
okay, 2019, resolution 2019 -6.
Yep, there's 6.
Okay. Motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Anything that needs to be changed there, or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Wonderful. We have no presentations, public hearings, etc. I'm not sure just how we're going to go about the going through the engineering.
I have a
Since the
update.
engineer didn't
Yeah, since he didn't make it down.
make it today.
Okay, so I've got
The first thing is
updates.
Red Wing Avenue update.
Yes, all right. Let's see. All right. This fellow's gonna be here. Okay. Okay, Red Wing Avenue, the survey is approximately 75% complete. Progress has been hampered by the weather, but it should be completed in the next 2 weeks. At that point, there will be a memo that the city engineer will put together to summarize the findings of all the preliminary activities, such as the survey work, the sewer main televising, the soil borings, the utility structure inspections, and that will be prepared for, will be ready for the March council meeting. So at the March meeting, the next step will be the city council will need to discuss considering authorizing a formal feasibility report for the 429 state assessment requirements, since that will be an accessible project. That would be the next step in that. So, Second Street project, update traffic control detour plan. Representatives from Bolton Bank have met with MnDOT, and they've corresponded several times via phone and email. They've been developing some temporary traffic control detour plans with input from MnDOT traffic engineers. They anticipate having the proposed traffic control detour plan worked out soon, and once the plans are finalized, then the permit application would be submitted to MnDOT for formal approval for the sewer line. The remainder of the construction plans are in process of being prepared, and the plans should be ready for consideration of approval at the March council meeting.
And then update on the utility extensions.
Yes. So this was basically kind of just a recap of what was talked about at the EDA meeting. I know a couple of you were at that EDA annual meeting, so this might be a little bit of some of the stuff we talked about. Joe reviewed quite a bit of information at the EDA meeting regarding the, the business park development, the utility extensions, the schedule for the project, and the work that's been tied into a lot of work that they've been doing the last couple of months is tied into that business, that BDPI application through deed. And so a lot of that really, a lot of the meat of that application are the estimates for the cost that we're requesting the grant for. So, preliminary review of sanitary sewer and water to serve the property has been completed. There's more information in the packet on that January 14th memo. I won't go through that in great detail, but some of the conclusions are that the water main connection to the existing water main on both the north Highway 60 and south sides of the EDA property is recommended, so the system is looped. This is needed to provide better flow rates, pressure, and system reliability, especially in that business park area. Sanitary sewer extension is recommended from the north, from Highway 60. The route for the sewer and water extension from Highway 60 is conceptual at this point. The exact proposed routes would need to be determined, taking into account such items as topography, existing land use, potential land use in the future, wetlands. Routing will be determined in the near future. And you have some, as part of that memo, you've got some, estimates of where the sewer and water and electrical lines would run. When Joe talks about that being conceptual, though, I mean, that is pretty, close to where they would be, especially as you get up toward Highway 60. We've talked about, Wayne and I have talked about some different ideas there of where it could run. There's maybe two different, which we'll talk about in more detail when this comes as a regular agenda item, but basically there's a couple different options that we have in that area where to run it. So the cost for the infrastructure improvements are tracking well, according to Joe, with the previous estimate that he had done, the original one in July of 2018. The only change to the cost estimates has been the addition of the electrical extensions, and that was done because DEED, after review, decided that we could include those And obviously, that's quite a bit of money, so that's what kind of pushed this back a couple months, and what, you know, because the engineers had to put together some engineering estimates and, you know, drawings and concept plans for that grant application. So that's kind of where we're at today now, so that's been all completed. The information has been provided to CETA, which is finalizing the BPDI grant. And the other item that we talked about in some depth at or not in depth, but just in concept-wise, was the next steps in the planning process. And so we met with the city attorney last week. Joe and I did to kind of drill down on that a little more. But what will be coming down the pike now in the next several months will be the preliminary plat. Right now, the concept, you know, in a normal planning process, you have concept plan, preliminary plan, and final plan. And the concept plan has been completed, so the next step will be the preliminary plat. So that will be, and I believe we talked about, Scott talked about that we would be able to do the preliminary and final plat as basically one step. So that'll save us time and money. But as far as, you know, 2019 goes, outside of where this grant is and whether we get awarded or not, the things I would like to see happen are the platting, which I think, you know, we're on track to do that, and then the utility extensions. If we can get both of those things done or get those started this year, the utility extension work, you know, could go into next year. I don't know, depending on when it gets started and, you know, all those things. If we get those things completed this year, though, I think that's a major step toward that business park. And depending on what happens with the grant, you know, it's kind of a natural next step. If we get the grant, obviously we'll be able to move faster with everything if we have 50% of that covered. But if not, I think, you know, the next step then will be starting the physical work going into the park. We'll start talking about that next year. But, you know, the reality of the situation is, you know, we only have so much, you know, we can do. And so, you know, Red Wing is coming down the pike, you know, could be $700,000-800,000.
That's the reality, always sneaks
And
up.
the reality is that, you know, we're not going to be able to really just jump in and do that whole business park at one time. And I don't think we would anyway, because I think that's such a long-term thing that, you know, so I think for this year, though, if we can get the utility extensions done, that's going to benefit our whole community. It's going to benefit the whole sewer and water and electrical systems, regardless of that business park anyway.
Right.
So if we get those done and we get the platting done, I think those are major steps.
Looping that water line and putting that new sanitary line to the north, where it goes into a relatively new line rather than coming the opposite direction down into an old and already deteriorated line. And
Yeah.
Two big things.
So I guess that's all we have for that.
And that section here under legal is to discuss amending section 405 of the city code, which we just spent quite a bit of time discussing that in our work session before the regular meeting, and we're not ready to take any action yet, but we'll continue to discuss and refine it and come up with a workable plan within the next probably 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
Better to take a little bit more time and do it right than to hurry up and do something that doesn't work, which apparently is what might have been done before. And then we go to old business, emergency/mass notification software.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have any new information. I'm working with another company to try to get an estimate from the first two companies we talked to, so I guess I don't have anything else with that.
And B, under old business, the updated strategic plan. the,
And I wanted to just go over this real quickly, but the strategic plan, there was a couple of changes or little minor modifications, I guess you could say, as far as the strategic plan as a result of the EDA annual meeting that I just wanted to talk about a little bit. So you've got that updated copy in your packet. Basically, the main thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that we did add under G, relationship building. So it's basically on the last page. Basically, I added working with the partner organizations, including the school district, CABA, CETA, and others, to develop a future event in Kenyon that promotes entrepreneurship by partnering technical assistance providers with small businesses and startups. So that was one of the things that I wanted to, or the main thing that was added as a result of the EDA annual meeting. The other item that was added was under E, which is page 2, or page, it goes on page 3, top of page 3. I added to looking at current and future park needs, dog park. Superintendent Festa had brought up during the EDA meeting that there was some property to the west of the baseball fields. Is that correct? East of the baseball fields. East. That would work. He felt it could be utilized as a future dog park. And so it's behind one of the baseball fields, and it's a semi-wooded area. There's a fence right now on the back of the baseball field there, so we'd have to add, we basically have to fence part of it or all of it in order, to contain the dogs. And the park board talked about it last night at their meeting, and there was interest in it. So it's kind of a future, I mean, not way future, but we'll have to have more discussion with the school district about it. But there seemed to be a lot of interest in the idea. So there's still some probably things. Obviously, a lot of details will have to be ironed out. It's just a concept idea now. But anyway, so those were 2 items that were added from the EDA annual meeting.
okay, and item C here, update on county solid waste ordinance adoption process.
So I was contacted by Barney Nessa, by Commissioner Nessa, about cities in his district, and his contact's gone beyond his district, but cities that are adversely impacted by that solid waste ordinance coming together and trying to pass some type of an action, and this sort of morphed into a resolution. Kind of as reality crept in here, but basically that, he had requested that cities pass some type of resolution basically stating that we're going to opt out of this ordinance. Well, we can't opt out of a county ordinance. So, I had told them at that time that I would look into it. I talked to some of the other city administrators, and we kind of just see, where this shakes out. So I was contacted subsequently by Michael Bolton in Wanamingo, and he had given us a draft of a resolution. So I kind of went through that and made quite a few different revisions and suggested different things to them. Most of which is in here. There was a few things I kind of went back to, but basically what we're trying to do is show that we have some, concerns with portions of this ordinance. A lot of it really comes down to the tipping fee increase the first year, but there's also some other things that you know, just kind of continue in a big picture sort of way, but I describe it that way because frankly, that train has left the station already with a bunch of this stuff. So we can sit here and talk about a lot of the components of this, but it's already gone, and you know, we know what direction most of this is going. And as I've talked, and you know, obviously Dan, you know too well, this is a long-term process that still isn't done. There's still steps that Public Works has to do. You know, the county board approved moving ahead with the next steps 3 to 2. The final ordinance won't be passed until some of these other steps are done, like negotiating contracts with haulers, and there's a couple of 1 or 2 other things. And I'm not totally plugged into every step of this, but anyway, so make a long story short, I guess, this ordinance reflects what I think, you know, was toned down quite a bit from what we originally requested. You know, one of the items that I had brought to Michael's attention, Michael Bolton's, was why don't we request that that tipping fee increase be phased in? This has never really come up before, but if there's going to be a 26 or 36 or whatever it is, couldn't that be phased in over 2 years even? Because that would help, you know, with cost increases and things like that. So that seemed to gain traction with Long-Mingo folks. You know, there was some language in here that talks about, that I want to just point out, that talks about moving, well, the other item too is mentioned in here about the county looking into a transfer station, which I also think is a good thing to put in here. It doesn't bind anybody, but I think that it would be beneficial to put in a transfer station somewhere as an option for haulers, so that if they don't want to bring the stuff to Red Wing, and there would have to be a lot of things hammered out with this idea, but I mean, I think it's, you know, is something that should be, the county should pursue it. So that's also talked about in here. So basically, there's 4 items, if you look at the second page here, that, you know, this request. One is that the county board gather as much financial data as possible and calculate best case and worst case scenarios for either acting the proposed plan or doing nothing. You know, this didn't come from me, but I'll tell you, I'm not against it per se. I'm not against asking them to do it, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. That the city requests the county to provide an equitable solution to the distance traveled for haulers that come from the west side of the county. And this is where it talks about the transfer station, item 2, or mileage reimbursement to cities or haulers. The second part of that, I don't want to classify everything I said, you know, came up with it, but that wasn't my idea. But again, if you can always ask, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere either. But I think the main part of number 2 is that we're trying to throw out there that we'd like to see the county pursue a transfer station. And I think that's reasonable. I think it's a reasonable request. So, and then number 3 is the tipping fee increase to be phased in over 2 or 3 years. And number 4 is just that the county board will continue to monitor annual costs. Again, I think that's fine. You know, I think that's a good thing too. I think one of the things that came out of this that I guess I didn't realize was that there's a cap now after the initial increase of like 5% a year. So that is much better than what was before. There was no cap. And so we're looking down the spectrum of those tipping fees could increase every year. There's no control over them. Well, now we do have control over them. So the $26 one, or whatever that is, I'm not sure where the 26 was set, or if that's an estimate or whatever, but we know that's a big jump. And then we also know the other main component's going to be having to haul, you know, from, say, Plum goes right now to Rice County or wherever they go. They have to go all the way to Red Wing. So those are going to be 2 big things. But this way, at least, you know, we're asking for some reasonable things. And I think we have a reasonable chance of these items getting incorporated into the ordinance. I think we have a good shot of that now, better than we did before. Because right now it's 3-2, and I think the swing vote might look, you know, people may look at this now, some of the members, some of the commissioners may look at this one.
Frankly, if I could write a request to the county board on this subject and have any delusion whatsoever that it might do any good, that would be that county board assure that county residents deriving the greatest benefit from this plan would be bearing the greatest amount of the cost. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it's going to be. That being said, we have a
So anyway,
to approve.
yeah, or this could be changed. I mean, it's not set in stone.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable, and I think it's better, I'll be honest with you, because there was some wording in here before that was a little more inflammatory that it's not happening, so.
Yeah, I think it's based on the reality principle that, you know, if they want to impose this ordinance, they can. And some of us have argued as much as we could argue to tell them it's a bad idea.
Right.
That anytime you grant a monopoly to any facility, that you lose all the benefits of competition and you lose choice and everything else. And they seem to be intent on moving forward. And I know there's a tremendous amount of pressure from the state as well, because the state dumped a pile of money, many millions, into that facility in Red Wing, and so they need it to limp along.
They need it to pencil out.
Right, yeah. So they're facing that too. But I like the resolution. I think it's very reasonable. I think it addresses our greatest concerns. So I would move approval of it.
I'll second.
John, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Resolution 2019-05 has passed. And then we have the matter of resolution 2019-04, authorizing transfer of funds to street department and storm sewer enterprise fund from the capital fund.
Yeah, it's just an interfund transfer.
And, yeah, this was discussed at our last
Right,
meeting.
right. And the auditors have asked me to do these by resolution, so that's what we're doing. In the past, it was straight done by motion, but, so yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Resolution passed. And then we go to new business. Approve hiring a part-time police officer. Chief Shoreland is requesting approval to hire Jake Cook as a part-time police officer. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Lost Highway Agreement for Rose Fest Dance. Frankly, I haven't looked that over a great deal.
It's the same format that we've had in the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. We paid $1,500, you know, for the band, and then basically they take the gate. In the past, when Johnny Holmes was, you know, played for many years, the way that worked was that the city paid $10,000, $11,000, maybe the last year, and then the city took the gate, and it was much more of a crapshoot. as far as, okay, are we gonna make money? I mean, I think overall, when you look at, you know, the liquor and beer sales and all the other sales are, you know, we made money most years, but it was a major capital outlay. And Lost Highway came along and said, well, we'll, you know, if you pay $1,500 and then we take the gate, and we have obviously all the alcohol sales, we really come out pretty well on that whole setup there. There's not a lot of downside for us, a lot of risk. And we have, obviously, or not obviously, I mean, we have weather insurance if it rains. So, yes, I mean, it's worked out good, and they've drawn pretty well, Lost Highway. And I think the thing this year is Lost Highway's not going to tour very much. They're kind of going into retirement.
Might even be bigger than us.
So that's what we're hoping, because they're not going to play nearly as many dates anymore. So we're hoping that it'll draw more people.
So Mark, do we actually have weather insurance, or do we just pay out 10,000 if it?
Well, no, we buy weather insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we go through security, and they get, I don't know what the cost of that insurance is.
Yeah, I don't remember now. I should, because.
500,000, I don't know, it's,
Yep.
Rain and hail insurance.
we cashed out on it more than 1 year,
Oh, yeah.
I think, since I've been
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And
We paid the
one
band,
year,
and then we got some of it, so actually, it worked out pretty well.
Yep.
And the other thing is, we have that tent now that we started 2 years ago, that's, I mean, that's been just awesome.
Sure.
we got the
So-
insurance
That really makes,
payment, which more than covered the cost of the tent, and the
yeah, exactly.
dance was able to go on anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Worked out really well.
Good.
yeah.
So, motion to approve the agreement with Lost Highway for the Rose Fest dance. So. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Proposed landscape partnership cooperative agreement. Maybe Wayne can.
This is just another technicality with working with the state for our prairie project on Overton Hill. We passed the resolution agreed a few months back.
Right.
So we did that. The paperwork gets approved or looked at by the state. We make a resolution. Now it goes, after we approve this, it goes to the state to get approved, and then should be good to proceed with it.
Looks like it's going to probably go through and save quite a bit of time and effort over the years.
Yeah.
Do we have a
So-
motion? Oh, go ahead.
I guess we would probably have to have two motions, one to approve that cooperative agreement and then one for that resolution. Okay.
That's got
That would make most sense, yes.
I'll move that we approve the cooperative agreement.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And now who's going to step in for resolution 2019-606? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes. Now, on to the next item, the kiddie pool renovations. This is another item that we discussed quite a bit at the work session. And to cut to the chase, these are things that need to be done or we won't be opening our pool this year. Anything you want to add on that?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
Mark, exactly how do you need the motion for that? Is it to transfer money from capital or just to approve the payment of the?
Well, if we have to do a formal transfer, we'll do it after.
Okay.
But this would just be to approve the expenditures.
Yeah.
Expenditures.
Well, I'll move that we approve the expenditures of approximately $58,000 to repair the pool so it's ready for this year.
We'll second that movement.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just before we pass on to the next thing, a little reality check here. Talking during the work session about what it would cost to build a new pool like that now. And you threw out the number of probably about $1 million.
Yeah, I think it was, I remember right, it was like 1.2 to, and that can vary. The sky's the limit on that.
So 58,000 on something that isn't a necessity or a big moneymaker may seem a little bit expensive, but when you look at it as a matter of maintenance of an asset we already have, then it
Well,
looks.
that, and I had no idea, it's been around since the 50s.
Oh, I was among the first people to
Yeah.
use that pool.
That's a pretty impressive.
I'm seriously, I was.
I think the 50s was just the big pool. I
Yep.
think in 86 the little ones were added.
Okay.
And then the deck and stuff was expanded.
We used to have to take a bus to Faribault. So then we move on to the sewer plant pump. Again, it's a situation that pump needs to be repaired or replaced. Replacement is with a modern pump that still has parts available for maybe slightly higher, but probably not actually. And a longer, better long-term solution. So cost maybe approximately $12,000. We don't have a firm number on that yet, do we?
No, the new pump would be, well, pump and install, minus a little bit of electrical work would be $17,905, plus a few hours with electrician.
Sounds like a bargain. I'll move that we approve the purchasing of that pump.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
And then another sewer plant situation, quote for the sewer plant intermediate settling tank, which now I'm not sure what we came up with on the final probable cost of that.
I don't have this sheet with me. It's, well, the sheet you have in front of you from Kenyon, that's gonna be just the parts, the plastic components to rebuild it. And that was
34,206 for that.
yeah. And then it's gonna be, like another $1,500 for a lift rental and some outside contractor help for one little aspect of it, to drill some holes into the concrete. And then we'll have to get some miscellaneous bolts and stuff from Fastenal. This was a budgeted deal, I just
Yeah.
put it in front of you so you, because it was a substantial dollar amount.
So if you just approve the quote from Kenyon, I think that's sufficient. That's what's in the packet. And, you know, the rest of it will take
This
out,
is just to get parts ordered, because it's,
you know,
Right.
it's 8 to
general
10 weeks
maintenance
out.
or something in the budget, so I wouldn't be concerned about that so much, but just the actual purchase of that equipment.
I'll move we proceed with the quote from Kenyon.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Quotes for sewer camera and locator, another item that was considerable discussion at the work session. I think we all understand where we are now and see the value in this, especially with a lot of the new construction work coming up in the next few years with Red Wing project and other places we could have used it this year had we had it.
I move we approve the quote from Copperhead Innovations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're whizzing right along. Quotes for zero-turn mower.
In front of you is 2 quotes, one from Ace Hardware, and there's one also from John Deere. I did approach Traxxas for a quote. He wasn't interested in doing a trade, and so if we decide to sell them outright, he would issue a quote for that. I'm recommending the Ace Hardware quote right now because it is the it's the best price. We'll try to cut it in on more. This is just for just rotating out the old one. Why it's still worth something. It's just makes sense.
This could be utilized in the new dog park if we had to.
Yeah.
Never use your mower for that. So, motion to approve purchasing that mower from Ace Hardware.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Okay, John.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, quotes for a public works, oh, gosh, we buy a lot of trucks around here.
Well, this is another, we budgeted, it's to update the 2008 F-150 with a newer F-150.
I just had a question on this quote. Is it 31,582 less 4,500, or is that 31,582 is the bottom line?
Let me see. That's the pickup plus trade, so it's 31 minus the.
31 minus the 4,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we have a motion to approve purchasing that pickup.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
So like Holly, the net amount, we can put in the minutes is 27,082 after trade-in. You don't have to put anything that, I mean, you have to put the trade-in amount in there.
And resolution 2019-03, approving Kenyon DDPI grant. This is the grant for that extension and utility.
Yeah.
Into the,
Well, it would cover road and utilities both for the first phase, 50% of it up to like $1 million if they got approved.
That's huge.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
That's really huge.
So,
So, do we have a motion to approve resolution 2019-03, approving the DDPI grant?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We're getting there, gentle folks. Other business, schedule of upcoming meetings. KMU meeting Wednesday, February 20th at 6 p.m. Our next regular city council meeting, Tuesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. And Board of Appeal and Equalization, Wednesday, April 10th at 5 p.m. Are you still certified for that?
I think so.
I know I pulled out mine to check and make sure. I know Doug is.
Doug is, yeah.
But he won't be there. April? Probably not. April 10th? He may or may not. I know I pulled mine out and I'm on my last year.
Yeah.
You probably should double check.
Yeah.
Doug was here last year.
Yeah, I thought he was too.
Now, I know he did the training last year, but
I might still be certified from the county yet. I know I did
Okay.
one. How long is it, 5 years?
I was thinking it was every 2 years,
Oh,
but,
okay.
or is it, you think it's
I
longer?
think it's at least 3.
Yeah.
So you still might
I
not.
might be 3, 5.
No, have to look. Council and staff, general comments.
Well, just a thank you to Public Works crews for being out there, taking care of the city in this kind of weather. It's, what are we now, number 4 on the list of snowiest Februaries? And so you might not hear it all the time, but everybody appreciates the work you guys do, so thank you.
Yeah, from a regular citizen, yes.
I'll piggyback on that, exactly, and I have not heard one complaint.
All right. You don't listen to the right people. But they would complain if they were under the new rules, so. And that's about my comment. Just hope the Lord that when we are meeting here the next time, we don't have that junk out there to deal with anymore.
Well, at least not to this degree.
Not as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope we have a nice steady melt. We don't need any flooding. Well, not that we usually,
You don't need to be washed off the face of the earth, but,
yeah.
that,
No comments, thank you.
well, that being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll move.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Aye. Game adjourned.